Hi, welcome back to A Novel Lunch. I'm your writing coach, Pamela S. Thibodeau, and today we're going to talk about what kind of writer you are. Okay, so you're writing your book, you know how to mark your time, schedule your time, you've learned about tropes and genres and things like that. But now this exercise or this lesson will help you determine what kind of writer you are, and that may help you stay more organized and more committed to finishing your project. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, here we go. Let's get up here. So what we're going to talk about is what kind of writer you are. So if you know what kind of writer you are and you learn how to utilize that knowledge within your personal writing style, this will enhance your writing experience and help you feel more successful. Understanding yourself is the first step in working in the way that fits you and your lifestyle. Okay, so let's start with a plotter. Now, what is a plotter? A plotter is someone who needs to know their characters inside and out. They know their conflicts and goals, the motivation, and there are several ways to plot out their novel. So they may know a lot, but they want to be organized to get from point A to point B and to get the entire story told within the word count they choose to write. Okay, so here are some ways that you can be a plotter. You can plot your novel. You can brainstorm. Okay, so you just let your imagination go wild, write down the characters, the character arcs, the growth, the setting, the inciting incident, any developments, crisis, resolutions, and all that. Just write it all down. Just write it all down, and then you can organize it a little bit better. Where if you're working on your story and you get stuck, then you'll have something to look back on and say, okay, this is where I want the story to go, and you can start working that out. Okay. Another way would be to figure out the end and then to figure out the beginning. Okay. Um, and then you can determine the steps that the character or characters need to make to get to from the beginning to the end. A lot of people use this. Okay. They know the ending. They know the beginning, but they don't know what's in the middle. And they can say, so they can talk to their characters, they can brainstorm, they can say, okay, how are we going to get from here to here and resolve whatever issues need to be resolved? One of the common ways that people do this is using a storyboard. A storyboard can be index cards, sticky notes, whatever it is to plot it out, put it on a piece of construction paper or a whiteboard or something like that. Now, when we get back after the holidays, I'm going to have an interview for you with an author that I know uses the storyboard method, and she's going to give us some examples and tell us how it works for her and how she came up with the idea and what it does to benefit her. So that's something to look forward to after the holidays. Another way that you can plot is to outline each chapter briefly, a sentence or a paragraph, a couple things. Make sure you include major plot points so there are no holes in your story. And one more way that you can plot is to write out a brief synopsis, about 250 words. You can even expand that to 1 or 2 pages because if you start pitching your book, a lot of times they ask for a full novel synopsis, which talks about the beginning, the inciting incident, the plot points, the black moments, and then the resolution. So if you write this in advance, a lot of times that helps you to again, get unstuck while you're working on your book. Now, that's what plotters do. They plot out their story, sometimes briefly, sometimes in great detail. But it works. It works for them and it works for different ones. So that's something to think about. Is this your personality type? Is this something that would benefit you to plot out your book with as much detail as you can? But do it in a way that you leave room for the characters to take the story on it's their journey. So leave room for them to have some ins and outs, some side jaunts, or whatever. an unconventional way to get to the end of the story. That's what makes a story unique, and that's what makes a story exciting. So when you plot it, it's not written in blood or set in stone, okay? It is just an idea for you to flesh out your story if you get stuck. Now, if you're like me and you're a pantser, you may not know anything. All I know is that it's going to be a happy ever after. I may get a scene or a tagline that won't let go, might not know anything else, and you write by the seat of your pants. Pantsters usually write in a linear fashion. I'm sorry about that. They start with the beginning and they write through to the end. Now for me, I may jot down a scene. If I have a scene, I may write the scene out, and then it's like, okay, now how do I get them from here where they're at to that scene? And I just kind of let the characters guide the story and fill it all out because again, it's their story. That's how I write. I have tried plotting, I have tried different methods, and I feel constricted. So if you're a pantser, just write. Just stick to your schedule and write. Now, a hybrid is kind of a mix between a pantser and a plotter. Okay. You know a bit about your characters. You know what your storyline is. You know your conflict, goal, and motivation. You might have a full or partial scene or two written out, but you don't know what's going to happen in between. Okay. A lot of hybrid authors use what's called the snowflake method. And this was introduced by Randy Ingermanson. And the snowflake method, you start out with a 15-word or fewer sentence that summarizes your story. So here's an example from my novel, Circles of Fate. Will fate continue to throw the soldier and his lady together only to tear them apart? Okay, so the nice thing about that tagline is that is your elevator pitch. If you're talking to a publisher or an editor or an agent, and they say, tell me in one sentence what your story is about, well, then you have your tagline. Okay, once you get your tagline written, now this is the snowflake method in brief detail. Okay, once you get the tagline written, you expand that into a 5-sentence paragraph with one sentence summarizing the beginning of the story, 3 sentences for the major plot points, and 1 sentence for the conclusion. Okay, so this gives you a basis for your query letter. This could give you your back blurb. This could give you the beginning of a more detailed synopsis. Okay. Then after that, you create character interviews for each of your major characters. Now, this goes way too deep for me as a pantser, but it's not as detailed as a major plotter either. So you write the character's name, a 1-sentence summary of their storyline within the story, and then you could maybe tell their physical description, the goal, motivation, and conflict, what's keeping them from reaching their goal, and what he or she will learn, or the character arc for that character. And you can do a 1-paragraph summary of the character storyline. So you can do this for each of your characters, your main characters, and any secondary characters that are imperative to writing your book. Okay, so in addition to helping you understand your characters, this may help you decide whose point of view is better for each scene. Um, a lot of people like to use one point of view per chapter or per scene within a chapter if you're in the same time, same space. So this, this method is very popular, although I don't use it, but I do know that there are some authors that use it. Okay, you can expand on that to determine what will happen in each scene, character sheets, interviews, and stuff like that if you'd like to. But if you just want the brief snowflake method, this is it in a nutshell. Okay, for more information of that, you can go to Randy Ingermanson's website. I'll have this document on my website for you to download, and it has links to Randy Ingermanson's website and to his book that's available on Amazon. Okay. Hopefully this video is beneficial to you and gives you an idea to determine what type of writer you are and what steps you want to take, how detailed or how much in depth you want to go with plotting or outlining your story to help you move it along quicker. Some people swear by plotting or the snowflake method or the storyboard method, said it helps them stay focused, stay intentional, get more done, and finish their story sooner. Again, I'm a pantster, 100% right by the seat of my pants. I don't do that. I have found it constricting, and it does not benefit me as a writer to try to change who I am. And that's what this is for. It's just to give you an idea of what kind of writer you are and what systems you can put in place to help you finish that project. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was beneficial for you. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. If you'd like to support a novel lunch, there's links to that in the show notes, links to opportunities to share, to do that, to support the channel. If you'd like for me to work one-on-one with you on your writing project, you can email me, and that link for my email is in the show notes as well. That's all for today. I will see you again after the holidays. Like I said, I'll have an interview for you with an author friend of mine who does the storyboarding. And until then, write happy.